You want to support Roland Martin Unfiltered? Be sure to join our Bring the Funk fan club. Every dollar that you give to us supports our daily digital show. There's only one daily digital show out here that keeps it black and keep it real as Roland Martin Unfiltered. Support the Roland Martin Unfiltered daily digital show by going to RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. You can make this possible. Woo! Pressure bust pipes! External groups, Black Voters Matter, New Georgia Project, Fair Fight, others have been applying pressure to corporations in Georgia, asking them to stand up and speak out against the Republicans' voter suppression bill that was passed and signed into law by Governor Brian Kemp. They have been targeting Coca-Cola and Delta and Home Depot and others. Yesterday, Arthur Blank, of course, the owner of the Atlanta Falcons, co-founder of Home Depot, he released his statement. Initially, Coca-Cola and Delta sided with the Georgia Chamber of Commerce. Folks said, that wasn't quite good enough when it came to speaking out on voter suppression. Folks have been talking about boycotting Delta and Coca-Cola. Delta released an internal statement essentially praising the bill, saying some stuff was changed. Woo, let's just say it got a little heated on social media, and the Delta CEO came out with a new statement. I'll read that in a second, but here is a statement dropped today by the CEO of Coca-Cola.
Yeah, I completely agree. I mean, let me be crystal clear and unequivocal. This legislation is unacceptable. It is a step backwards, and it does not promote principles we have stood for in Georgia around broad access to voting, around voter convenience, about ensuring election integrity. And this is frankly just a step backwards. We've spent many decades promoting within Georgia a better society and a better environment for business, and this is a step backwards. And we're very clear on that, and our position remains the same. This legislation is wrong and needs to be remedied, and we will continue to advocate for it, both in private and now even more clearly in public.
Folks,
so you're clear now, James, but
that was the CEO of Coca-Cola speaking on CNBC. This was after a group of black executives, corporate leaders, the Black Economic Alliance, released their statement, also calling for these corporations to change these corporations to do more to fight voter suppression. Here is the statement released by the CEO of Delta. Pull it up, please. This just 2 weeks ago, we honored civil rights icon Ambassador Andrew Young by naming a building on our campus in his honor and establishing a permanent exhibit to his lifelong work in the lobby. The building was chosen because it is the first place most new Delta employees visit when they come to work for us, and we wanted them to see on their first day just how closely our mission of connecting the world intertwines with the work of heroes like Ambassador Young, a former Delta board member whose steady hand helped save our airline in the dark years following 9/11. For all the pride we take in the achievements of Ambassador Young and other civil rights heroes, many of them from our hometown of Atlanta, we know that much work remains to be done to truly establish a just and equitable society. Last week, the Georgia legislature passed a sweeping voting reform act that could make it harder for many Georgians, particularly those in our black and brown communities, to exercise their right to vote. Since the bill's inception, Delta joined other major Atlanta corporations to work closely with elected officials from both parties to try and remove some of the most egregious measures from the bill. We had some success in eliminating the most suppressive tactics that some had proposed. However, I need to make it crystal clear that the final bill is unacceptable and does not match Delta's values. The right to vote is sacred. It is fundamental to our democracy, and those rights not only need to be protected, but easily facilitated in a safe and secure manner.
In this room by myself.
After having time to now fully understand all that is in the bill, coupled with discussions with leaders and employees in the black community, it is evident that the bill includes provisions that will make it harder for many underrepresented voters, particularly black voters, to exercise their constitutional right to elect their representatives. That is wrong. The entire rationale for this bill was based on a lie, that there was widespread voter fraud in Georgia in the 2020 elections. This is simply not true. Unfortunately, that excuse is being used in states across the nation that are attempting to pass similar legislation to restrict voting rights. So there's much more work ahead and many more opportunities to have an impact. I want the entire Delta family to know that we stand together in our commitment to protect and facilitate your precious right to vote. That's why we invested heavily in our Get Out the Vote efforts last year, and we can all be proud of Delta's contribution to the historic voter turnout in 2020. In the weeks and months ahead, we'll be working with leaders across the political spectrum in states nationwide in this effort. We're also closely monitoring legislation in Congress named after the late Atlanta civil rights hero and Delta friend John Lewis that will expand voting rights nationwide and working with representatives and senators to represent our communities. I know this result in Georgia has caused frustration, anger, and pain for many members of our Delta family. I commit to you that as we move forward, Delta will continue to do everything in our power to hear and protect your voice and your rights, both in Georgia and nationwide. Thank you for all you do for your communities, your loved ones, and for our Delta family every single day. But folks, that is, of course, the CEO, Ed Bastian, of Delta. Joining us right now is Francis Johnson, the board chair for the New Georgia Project. Francis, glad to have you. So, Francis,
glad to be with you.
Let me just be clear here. I appreciate that statement from the Delta CEO. I appreciate the words for the Coca-Cola CEO. I appreciate Black executives, Ken Chenault and the others, for signing that letter. I saw the Executive Leadership Council release their own statement. But let's be real clear, Francis. We're only here discussing their statements because of the pressure groups like yours and Black Voters Matter and others put on them to stand up and speak out. The reality is this: had that statement been released when the House and the Senate was considering the bill, had that statement from Coca-Cola been released before the governor signed it into law, we may not be talking about this after the fact, which is why we need companies and Black executives to show up in the middle of the fight and not after the fight is over.
You're absolutely right. You know, after a summer of Black Lives Matter protests and the platitudes offered by these corporations about their support for Black and brown people and what we're going through, and after watching the 2020 election unfold as it did, the insurrection at the United States Capitol and the voter suppression across this state, we expected the corporate citizens who called Georgia home to do what was right. And instead, they were mealy-mouthed. They were trying to hedge bets. And ultimately, they were on the wrong side of this. And you're right. It has been nothing but the pressure from consumers, Black consumers and others around the country and around the world, that has told Delta, you have to do better. Consider the impact of Delta on the state of Georgia. 33,000 employees, just Delta. $62 billion in economic impact. 53 billion of that is attributable to Delta. If they had spoken up earlier, we may not be facing the greatest retrogression voter suppression act since Jim Crow. This is Jim Crow's Resurrection Act, and Delta has itself to blame.
And again, I need people to understand. I'm not saying we don't appreciate it, but the point is, we saw this coming. I mean, for the last 3 months, I have been on this show saying, y'all, here it comes. Y'all, Ossoff, Warnock won, Biden and Harris won. Oh, I said, y'all, they gonna change the laws. It's coming. Election night, Republicans like, oh, hell no. We changing this. And so for all these folks, they act like all of a sudden, you shocked?
Absolutely. Absolutely. You know, when you just go one step deeper in analysis. And you're spot on, and you called it just like you're supposed to. You called the spade the spade. But you consider Delta's previous action on RFRA, for example. They came out and stood with civil rights folks to oppose legislation that would target the LGBTQ community. And the state of Georgia slapped a reinstatement of the 4% gas tax on them, which cost them $60 million for their statement. Georgia's gas tax is second highest in the nation behind Illinois. Of course, that's home to the second largest airport, second busiest airport in the nation behind Hartsfield. So let's not mince words. This is about money. And at some point, somebody at Delta made the calculated decision that the risk of offending the Republicans who controlled this was far greater than the blowback they would get from black and brown people and people of goodwill who would see this as cowardice. But they misjudged, and they have hell to pay for it. They're late. We appreciate it. Now what they need to do is turn their influence and take their seats at the table to make sure the Senate moves past the filibuster if it has to enact the John Lewis Voting Rights and Advancement Act. But not only that, to call upon the state of Georgia to do something about this terrible legacy that it has given itself in the modern era as the state that resurrected Jim Crow.
And this is here's a perfect example. This is a tweet that Cliff Albright, co-founder of Black Voters Matter, sent out today. Come on, computer, please. This is why Black Voters Matter in organized Texas were at the AT&T building in Dallas on Monday. AT&T isn't just silent on voter suppression. AT&T is complicit on voter suppression. And this is what he was referring to. This tweet by Antonio Arellano. AT&T has donated $574,500 to Abbott Patrick, Governor Greg Abbott, and Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick, and the sponsors of Texas voter suppression bills since 2018. AT&T donated $150,000 to Patrick, who was so enthusiastic about Trump's false claims of voter fraud that he offered a $1 million reward for evidence. And so what this is saying is, okay, folks out there, if you watching DirecTV, if you're sitting here watching HBO Max, if you're watching any of these networks, if you've got AT&T phone service, if you're using anything with AT&T, AT&T's money is going to Republicans who believe in voter suppression. What you and Black Voters Matter and others are saying is, tell the likes of AT&T and other companies, withhold your dollars and say, if y'all seek to pass voter suppression bills, you are not going to get any support from AT&T. We are going to oppose it, and we're going to fund the people running against you. Is that what you and others are saying?
Oh, that's exactly what we're saying. Not only is our vote our voice, but the money that we spend and where we decide to spend it is also a part of that voice as well. And honestly, what we needed to do was have listened to the folks who turned this election in the first place. It was young voters, it was new voters, the voters of our future who were saying to these companies, put your money where your mouth is, long before the election and this General Assembly session. And so not only does Coke have to deal with this, you got other companies like Aflac and Home Depot, and the list goes on and on of companies that are going to have to address their corporate cowardice. And you said something a few shows ago that just stuck with me. And folks need to realize how all of these pieces are connected. Not only did the Republicans signal that they will take over local elections, but they've already signaled that they will take over even the Atlanta airport. And that came up last legislative session.
Yep.
And so there are lots of things that are moving behind the scenes. And make no mistake about it, this was a calculated decision on the part of these corporations to be silent at first. And now they're pivoting. The pivot is late, but they need to take their influence and now make sure that the United States Senate chooses freedom over the filibuster, that enacts the John Lewis Voting Rights and Advancement Act, and helps Georgia to move past this. If the Senate did its job, then we have to worry about the implementation of this Jim Crow Resurrection Act here in Georgia.
Francis Johnson, New Georgia Project. We surely appreciate it. Thanks a lot.
Oh, thank you, brother.
All right, folks, back to our Roland Mark Unfiltered video in just one moment.
It's time to be smart. When we control our institutions, we win. This is the most important news show on television of any racial background. Y'all put $2, $3, $4, $5, $10, $15, $20, $30 on this and keep this going. What you've done, Roland, since this crisis came out in full bloom. Anybody watching this, tell your friends, go back and look at the last 2 weeks, especially of Roland Martin Unfiltered. I mean, hell, go back and look at the last 2 days. You've had sitting United States senators today, Klobuchar and Harris. Whatever you have that you can bring to Roland Martin Unfiltered to support it, please do, because this information may literally save your life.
Watch Roland Martin Unfiltered daily at 6 p.m. Eastern on YouTube, Facebook, or Periscope, or go to RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. Support the Roland Martin Unfiltered Daily Digital Show by going to RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. Our goal is to get 20,000 of our fans contributing $50 each for the whole year. You can make this possible. RolandMartinUnfiltered.com.